All right, figurative language and poetry, this presentation. Here are the figures of speech we'll be looking at: metaphor, simile, personification, hyperbole, onomatopoeia, alliteration, assonance, imagery, and idiom. These are just some of the main ones. There are others, but these are the main ones. First we're going to look at is metaphor. It's the one I think most students have trouble with. The definition is a figure of speech that compares two unlike things, where the two things actually become the same. You can think of this, and I like to remember it. Someone told me once that you could compare it to metamorphosis, which is what a butterfly goes through, the caterpillar to become the butterfly. So the comparison actually, one thing becomes the other thing. Whereas you get this confused sometimes. I think students get it confused with simile, which uses like or as. And they always say, all right, we'll point out where the like or as is. And that's an easy way to look for it. But also with a metaphor, it's a little more complicated because it does something actually become something else. In the example, her hair was a river of golden light. Her hair actually becomes the river. It's not like the river. It's not similar to the river. If you think of that as a simile being similar, it's not similar to a river. Her hair is actually a river of light. In the poem where they use a metaphor, it becomes that other thing. There are three types that we look at: direct, extended, and implied. Direct is the most common one. It's usually using the form to be, like her hair was a river of golden light. That is a direct metaphor. The comparison, straight out, direct said. Extended is when it goes through the entire poem. An example would be A Dream Deferred by Langston Hughes. You have the extended metaphor of the dream throughout the whole poem, even though he uses a little some other things in there. He extends that metaphor throughout. An implied metaphor is the hardest one because it's not outright said. An example of this would be that if I was talking about my eating habits and talking about how I was scarfing down the food from a trough or something like that, then that would be implying that I am a pig without saying it directly. If I just say I am a pig, then you've got a direct metaphor. But if I talk about my eating habits as being pig-like, or actually become the pig, then that would be the implied metaphor. Simile is the figure of speech that compares the two unlike things using like or as. I think the metaphor and the simile, you have to look at both of those, and that you always have to find two comparisons. If you can't find two things in there that are being compared, you don't have that figure of speech. You can't just look for like and as, because then you'll start finding things in the poem that have like or have as in them, and that's not necessarily a simile. It needs to always have two things that are compared. The dog's eyes were as bright as the sun. You have the eyes, you have the sun. Those two things are being compared. You'll notice that it's not that the dog's eyes are the sun. He's not becoming the sun. They are just similar to. It's a very superficial comparison where metaphor really goes deeper into it. They're easily to mix up. You can remember that similes do like or as, metaphors do not. Simile is similar, metaphor like metamorphosis. Personification is one of the easier ones because it has the word person in it, and it is the figure of speech that gives the qualities of a person to an animal, an object, or an idea, such as the house wept when its last child left. It's that idea of taking on something that is not human, or something that is not human taking on human characteristics. Personification should not be confused with an animal doing something that a human could do. A lot of times you'll see in a poem and it'll say something about an animal and you'll immediately go, it's personification because it's talking about an animal. It can't be, it might be a literal statement. The dog walked with me in the woods is a literal statement. We are literally walking in the woods together. If the trees walk in the woods with me, they start getting, they sprout feet and start walking around. That is personification. Hyperbole is an exaggerated statement, such as my sister took a decade to answer the phone. Idiom are language-specific expressions, and you can also go to the idiomsite.com if you want to look at more idioms. A lot of times if it's an overused statement, you can tell it's not being a literal statement, but you're not sure what it is. A lot of times you'll find it's an idiom. Imagery falls under figures of speech, but it really is just words that appeals to the senses. such as the red dawn made the sky a fiery battle scene. You can see it. It's almost the heat. Feel the heat. It's a very sensory example. There are 3 sound devices we're going to look at: alliteration, assonance, and onomatopoeia. You also might find consonants under alliteration, and we'll talk about it a little bit. Alliteration is repeated beginning sounds at their consonants, usually, but they can be vowels. I need to fix that. It's repeated consonant and vowel sounds, such as the girly goose jumped to the top of the tallest tree. Assonance is resemblance in sounds, but it's vowel sounds, such as hills of willy-nilly sprites. You can tell it's different from alliteration because the I's are in the middle of it. If I talked about the rumbly bumbly whatever, then I'm talking about consonants as well, because you have that consonant as opposed to the vowel sound, the rumbling, crumbling, things like that. You might have assonance and consonants, and possibly alliteration all in the same thing, but they're varying degrees of the same thing. Alliteration becomes the beginning of the word, repeated consonant sounds. Whereat, with blade and bloody brainful braid, he bravely breached his boiling bloody breast. Assonance usually comes in the middle of the word, so does consonants. Crumbling thunder of seas. If you have The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe and you have the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain, it's a tongue twister almost in that. And you have assonance, you have alliteration, you have a lot of stuff going on there in the same thing. Onomatopoeia is fun to say. My 7th grade teacher made us say it over and over again. It was wonderful in class. They are words that mimic sounds like buds. All right, let's practice. Ready? All right, the girl in the purple dress had teeth like a horse. That's a simile. My dog was a beast before I fed him. A direct metaphor. Sweetly sang Sam with the starlit hair. You notice that's, it's alliteration. Ella, my neighbor, is 500 years old. Is a hyperbole. When he saw the rolling of the ominous clouds, he knew a storm was coming. It's assonance. The grass by the house was like stringy hair. Well, I'm comparing grass and hair and using like. It's a simile. Okay. Oh, these didn't come through. Oh well. Here's some more examples for you. And here's a poem for you to read. And you can pause this and come back. Find the figurative language. And then pick up. Abuse my snow and soil is alliteration. Blue, blue, alliteration. Feet can be compared to gems. That's a direct metaphor. The blossom of bright light, that's imagery, alliteration, and assonance. Being blind is alliteration. Bruised all over by pebbles is imagery. Did you find those? I hope you did. There's my references. Thanks for watching.